Hi then, Bob.
Hi, Lloyd.
Hiya. So I thought perhaps this morning what we should do is go through some of the benefits of ozone and why it can be so effective in helping this fight against the coronavirus pandemic. So should we start talking perhaps a little bit about ozone, the history of ozone, where it comes from and how it actually works?
Yeah, indeed. Ozone is probably man's most prolifically known sterilising agent. It's completely natural, features in lightning storms. Ozone is clearly spelt early morning on beach walks, etc. Fundamentally, it's O3. O3 is an unstable molecule. It's forced by man to exist in an O3 form, so it wants to try and revert back to O2 at its earliest opportunity. To achieve that function, it must oxidize something, and in our case, we want it to oxidize viruses, bacteria, and any organic material that could decay and present a future problem. The most prolific attribute of ozone is that it's automatic. So with the best will in the world and the best cleaning agent in the world, it's only as effective as the person applying it. It's on the wall, it emanates the gas into the protected area and maintains the protection 24/7 without human interface.
Okay, so once it's on, it just carries on treating the air and the surfaces that it actually hits and affects, that it touches.
Absolutely, yeah. The machines are additionally fitted with a programmer that will control the running hours to provide protection for all sorts of different environments. Hairdressing salon that's open 8 hours a day. We would recommend light use of the equipment while there's occupancy, and in the evenings to go over to full power and sterilise in the absence of any occupants.
Okay. So in the like of a toilet, because I mean one of the biggest things that we've found, and I know we've discussed this, is that as much effort is going into these bars, pubs and restaurants into one-way systems, reducing the number of tables to make sure keep people social distance, cleaning the tables down after every use, the chairs down, all these different things, putting people outside. One of the areas that the sort of, I suppose, bottlenecks has got to be the bathrooms, the toilets, because if you're in a pub or restaurant for any given amount of time, the chances are you're going to visit that toilet at least once, and so everyone's touching that same handle, everyone's going into that space, and then of course you've got all the atomization from flushing the toilet. For those that don't wash their hands properly when they use their hand dryers, the atomization from those blow dryers, which is really a breeding bed, I suppose, for bacteria, and of course the ability to spread that virus in that small confined space.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, with the most precise and diligent controls in restaurants, pubs, gymnasiums, changing rooms, waiting rooms, etc. The only area that cannot be monitored all the time, and indeed would be inappropriate to monitor all the time, is ladies and gents and disabled toilets. We feel that this is a prime area where the ozone sterilisers can have the greatest impact in a positive way on any business.
No, I can see that, because again, if you've got an ongoing protection in that toilet, then and that bathroom, and it's continually working, then it's hopefully having some form of effect by destroying that virus before people are breathing it in, because that, as I said, it is a confined space. And I mean, the amount of times that we've been to these places where they've got like the small extraction fans, but they've never been cleaned, and they're about as much use as a chocolate fire guard in a lot of cases. So yeah, you've got that. And actually, there's a funny story. Well, funny isn't the word really, I suppose. Well, something I was told recently was that whatever you can smell, you're actually ingesting in some way through these aerosol, through droplets. And so when you go to the bathroom and you can smell what you can sometimes smell in toilets, you're actually ingesting in some way that for your sense to be able to pick that up, which is quite a disgusting thought. But the fact is, you can't taste the coronavirus, and it can also, from what I also understand, the coronavirus could be spread through the toilet when someone flushes, because it can atomize the, well, best to put it really, but it can atomize that waste, and therefore then you've then got the COVID bacteria floating in the air, virus floating in the air.
Yeah, this is of course true, and also the multiplication of viral and bacterial infections is always in warm, humid areas, and by nature, the toilets, because of the amount of water from wash basins, steam from hand washing, urinals, etc., are always going to be high humidity areas. Another point worth mentioning is that the air-blown hand dryers, if there is ozone sterilisation taking place in the toilet, the air dragged through the hand dryer will have an internally sterilising effect on the hand dryer. Without ozone, I personally never use hand dryers. It makes little sense to use a sanitizer to wash your hands and then spray paint them with bacteria that's born in the hand dryer.
Yeah, so they're not quite as clean and as sanitary as people were led to believe when they first brought them out.
Indeed, well, paper towels are obviously the first option, but many toilets being fitted with warm air hand dryers must understand that if the contaminating particles are in the air and the air is drawn through the hand dryer, a certain residue remains there in a warm and damp environment ready to breed.
Okay. And what about the amount of ozone? Is that a concern, using it if it's run 24/7? Because that's one of the things that people mention, is that ozone is a dangerous gas.
Indeed. Well, just the same as any bleach or sanitizing product. It goes beyond advice to say don't drink these products, don't ingest them. Ozone is no different at all. It's a deadly poison in high quantities, but in small controlled amounts, it has quite the reverse effect. In fact, it promotes cell replacement, growth, etc. Many reports are available online on the attributes of ozone, and particularly medical ozone, where it has some great results to ailing people. But for our purposes, we keep the level below 0.02 parts per million, which is effective in bacterial control, but absolutely no ill effect for human occupancy. And this sweet spot is what we try and maintain. After an installation, our technicians can go along there with one of our accurate ozone meters and check that we are reaching useful levels. Our equipment is also pegged to not be able to produce dangerous levels of ozone, because we can't be monitoring it at all times.
Well, of course, it's also got a half-life, isn't it? So, of course, as it's being generated, it's also being used up. So that with those machines, at the levels that they produce, that would automatically, that's how they keep it under the recommended safety levels.
Absolutely, and indeed for us, it's also an indication of how effective the ozone sterilisation is taking place, because while there is oxidizable material, i.e. viral and soft fabric material, the ozone that's produced will oxidize and revert back to O2. So only when you build an ozone level in the atmosphere can you be sure that you've actually successfully oxidized and annihilated anything that was there prior.
Right. So initially, I mean, the other thing, of course, is that the virus, as it's known, is mainly caught through breathing in, through ingestion, through the air, through the droplets and the aerosols that have been atomized, rather than the being picked up from the surfaces. And of course, the beauty of those ozone machines, of course, is that they, first of all, it'll sanitize the air, and then as that gas lands on the surfaces, the secondary part of it is it's going to clean those surfaces too.
Well, yeah, we also have a much larger machine, which we advocate being used by the cleaning force, where the machine outputs prolific amounts of ozone into a non-occupied area. And we're finding this is very useful in goods receiving rooms, particularly rest homes where the focus has been on trying to keep everyone healthy. when goods arrive, the surface of the goods can be carrying the virus. Yep. And to be able to put these into a room with a very high level of ozone and no human occupancy for a couple of hours renders them completely safe to be handled there and after.
So that speeds up the process, really, of goods in. And of course, those care homes and the like are getting obviously deliveries on a regular, sometimes multiple times a day.
Absolutely. And reverting back to toilets and restrooms, the same scenario could apply, where the cleaning staff in the morning that do the physical deep clean leave a high power machine in for half an hour until they've done the next toilets and move it along, and then store it back with their vacuum cleaner and other cleaning materials as a every morning base load sterilisation, and then the maintenance, of course, with the on-the-wall unit.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the first time I ever come across ozone was in Vegas, because they use them, because you can still smoke in Vegas in the casinos and in the hotel rooms. They actually use those larger units in them to sanitize. So when they go in and do the clean, they literally put an ozone machine in, sanitizes, blasts the room, and then obviously they're cleaning the next room. Then they go back and take it and put it on the next one. So they've got two, and they sort of rotate them. And that was my first sort of experience. But that was more not necessarily for bacterial or for bacterial virus issue. That was to remove the smell of deodorize the rooms from the smoke and cigar smoke, because people were allowed to smoke in those rooms. Indeed.
Well, as you alluded earlier, any moisture particles in the air are carrying flavours and smells.
Mm.
And of course, the large machines are very effective, are in valeting services, such as car sales, etc., where a car has been owned by a smoker and then the next owner may not be a smoker. It will remove every trace of the smoke particulate out the soft fabrics, which aren't normally not normally achievable by modern or natural cleaning methods.
Mm. And it seems surprising. I mean, I knew nothing about it, ozone. I had no idea of the power of it, and I think, speaking to people, very few people do. I mean, it seems to be, I think we said it's the most powerful disinfectant in the world on the planet, and yet very few people know about it. Everyone knows about bleach and chlorine and various other different cleaning disinfectants, but really it's amazing how few people know of the benefits and power of ozone.
Well, very sadly, 1955, a report done on the safety attributes of ozone, and it was deemed too powerful and too unsafe for use in the public sector. But in 1955, we didn't have the levels of knowledge, we didn't have the levels of sophisticated electronic control. And indeed, if it wasn't such a prolific danger, we wouldn't be reaping the benefits of controlled amounts of it today.
No, that's true. I mean, I think, well, you can smell. I mean, we use an ozone machine here at home. So when my daughter's come back from school, her jacket, her bag, and everything is put into a room, and it's sanitized, a blazer and the like every day for that added layer of protection. But you can smell when you walk in the room. You know, if you walk in before it's had a chance to clear, then you can smell it. Have we lost that connection?
Dress shops and shoe shops have got particular problems, or at least as soon as they reopen, they will, because neither item can you buy without trying on, and as soon as you've tried it on, you could be promoting infection.
Well, can you just go back on that, because you froze out on that last bit, so I didn't catch any of that last thing you just said to me from this end.
The high levels of sterilisation are of great value to dress shops, shoe shops, garment shops in general, where you can't make the purchase without trying, and as soon as you've tried it, there's the potential for infection.
Yes.
So when the shops reopen very shortly, they're all going to have great problems and high-level concerns about how they actually allow a customer to be a customer in the normal sense of the word without being able to try the goods on. They're not going to make sales. And if they do try the goods on, how do they sanitize for the next client? Well, clearly we have the solution here. That's right. And of course, the world that we emerge into after this global pandemic is not going to be the same as the world we left. They've told us about variants. They've told us about to be on alert for the future for similar pandemics or the potential for similar pandemics. So really, we need to start creating a cleaner world at the human interface from now on. So ozone and sterilisation and the present coronavirus isn't short-term fix for a short-term problem. This is going to develop into a way of life for the future.
No, I can see that. I think one of the things as well I read recently that the low levels of ozone is effective to help with disinfecting and sterilising PPE. So for masks and the visors and the gowns and this type of thing, ozone is a very effective way. So again, for care homes and places like that, and that again has been these are scientific proven studies, by the way. It's not hearsay, because that's another thing that people worry about, is that this is, it's a guesstimate. These are actually proper studies that are being done. The other thing that I was reading the other day, because I've been reading quite a lot to try and understand it better, and they were saying how effective it's been against MRSA, which is a huge thing, because I didn't realise that certain viruses and even bacteria have become resistant to bleaches and disinfectants and chlorines. They've actually built up a resistance to it. But there's nothing so far from this report I read, nothing so far that has actually ever become resistant to the effects of ozone.
Well, that's right. Yeah, we're agreed that infections are organic and they're carried by minute water particles in the air. And so while ever water comprises of an oxidizable material, and while ever the fabric of the virus remains oxidizable, ozone will be the one-stop shop for sanitization.
Okay, well that's I think from a medical perspective that growth, and they're looking at various other medical uses for it.
There's been it's worth Googling oxytherapy or oxygen therapy, or indeed ozone therapy. And you'll see that many medical institutions around the world are successfully using ozone to help patients. I'm not medical background, so I'm not going to speak on something I know nothing about, but I would certainly urge anyone interested to have a look at the attributes of medical ozone and take it up with their GP.
Well, I've looked at some of that stuff. I know, for example, I have found that a lot of dentists use ozone to sanitize and sterilize their equipment. They have like a unit that produces ozone within it. In Spain, a lot of the operating theatres use ozone as the secondary disinfectant sterilisation stage. So once it's been cleaned and wiped down after use, they blast it with ozone. And of course, it can be used. The other thing, of course, it's being used in the food industry because, unlike fogging, there's no chemical residue. They're using it in breweries because it leaves no taint or taste, but it'll actually destroy any unused yeast or bacteria that's built up in the breweries I've seen. And of course, most of the world use it within water treatment plants to sanitize and disinfect the water.
Also, if it's diffused into water, the ozone has a half-life of around 14 hours in water, and that water that's been ozone impregnated can be used for sanitizing.
So in place of a bleach, what you're saying is if you get water that you put ozone into, you can then use that water to wipe down and sanitize and clean surfaces.
Yeah, certainly. It will turn the water into a sanitizing fluid, which will revert back to O2 as soon as, once again, it meets anything oxidizable. Worth mentioning that the ozone level in the water will only start to build when the water itself has been sterilized.
Okay.
So the first phase is to sterilize and oxidize all the particulate in the water, oxidizable metals, oxidizable calciums, oxidizable bacteria and viruses. So you start off with a clean fluid, and then you build a residual level of ozone into it so that anything it touches becomes an active sterilizing agent. there's quite an enlightening report by the University of Saragossa, where they took a water sample from the Ganges River.
Right.
They filtered the particulates out of it, but did no medical cleaning of the water, subjected it to ozone, and then offered it for consumption, and it was drunk.
Wow. So there's many uses for it that we haven't even thought of yet. And I suppose as people listen to this, maybe will come up with other ideas.
Indeed, I think the danger is to not, or the danger to guard against is getting giddy about its attributes. If we look at the here and now for today, we're right on the eve of hospitality industry opening up again. We know that we've got an easily curable problem in the ladies, the gents, and the changing rooms at hotel gymnasiums, etc.
Yeah.
Controlled, concise areas where adjudication through the day is impossible to achieve. And those areas, if we introduce ozone sterilisation into all those areas, we remove a major threat, and then maybe have a look lower down the food chain to see what else we can do.
But as you say, that it was blindingly obvious to me that all this time, effort, and work going into building these protections, as I said, reducing the number of tables in a restaurant, how many people can go in, the one-way systems, all these things, sanitising your hand as you go in, wearing, the mask wearing, all these things, they're all positive things. They're all ways to help. But of course, when that toilet, it just knocked me for six when I realised that, of course, that the toilet, there's virtually nothing being done in that area because it can't be. And if it's the chance of someone who either has COVID visiting that toilet, if you've got hundreds of people going through that in a nightclub, or as you say, a restaurant or a gymnasium, those areas, someone that's infected could infect multiple people really easily just by passing through that bathroom.
Well, that's right. And we've also learned many things from this lockdown. We've learned that the amount of influenza cases this winter have dropped like a stone. And the only reason for that is because of our separation, of our renewed knowledge in viral management and control. So this is why I say I believe that the current circumstances are with us now forever, and we need to understand and learn how we live with it. And ozone sterilisation is a tool which takes an awful lot of the heartache away from achieving that. It
definitely adds. It's another added layer of protection, isn't it? I don't suppose it's going to replace the cleaning regime or any other bits, but if you add that on as another layer of protection, each one is a. And if it prevents loss of one life, then it's well worth utilising. But I think it can do definitely far more than that.
With the best will in the world, the most diligent cleaning staff are able to miss certain areas. And an enclosed volume enriched with ozone, the areas cannot be missed. In fact, areas that cannot be cleaned can be sterilised. I'm talking about the joint crevices between wash basins and worktops, the mortar between the porcelain tiles, older establishments where the toilets are constructed from soft materials, not exactly carpeted floors, but floorboards and linoleum, that when you walk into the toilet, you can immediately smell perfume and stale urine. That stale urine smell is eradicated with ozone, which has to also tell everybody that the area has to be cleaner. And also coaches, buses, etc. For the cleaning crews to have them on coaches and buses, maybe even a mobile unit mounted within the air conditioning system.
Right.
Would be a great asset to not prevent is a big word, but certainly to assist in a large way with viral control.
Yeah, in all sorts of viral control.
Absolutely, right across the board.
But all viruses and bacteria. So I think, moving forward, I think as people become more and more aware of ozone, it's definitely going to grow. And as I said, I was quite surprised at how few people, even in the medical industry, that aren't aware of the power and the benefits of using ozone. They just talk about the dangers of ozone. That it can affect It can cause breathing difficulties and the irritation to the throat and the like. But as you said, so can the likes of chloride and others. Much more dangerous as far as that's concerned. Because
rather interesting, the topic of irritation to the throat. Sometimes it has great attributes. Right. In the equestrian world, ozone is used quite extensively in stalling of horses. And the irritation to their throat is an asset because it alerts their defense system, and they are unlikely to pick up viral or bacterial infection when they visit other stables prior to racing. So a lot of veterinary surgeons recommend use of ozone purely to trigger the horse's immune system before it travels.
Okay. I also read recently that in 120 years since ozone has been, we've been aware of ozone and using it in industrial or commercially, there's never been one recorded death.
Electric welders in industry, welders' prolific use of MIG and TIG welding and various, they reach far, far higher levels of ozone than ever we would use for bacterial control.
Okay. So how is that happening?
As far as I know, there hasn't been an industrial injury claim from any welder ever.
Okay. So how is ozone produced then? With these units, what is the process? How does it actually generate?
Ozone is, large amounts of ozone are produced by coronal discharge.
Okay.
In nature, it's when negatively and positively charges in the atmosphere clash and we have a large thunderstorm. That's nature's way of sterilizing, and immediately you get the fresh atmosphere after the air has cleared, as we say. Yeah. And that's really because there's elevated levels of O3 in the air at that time.
Right. And that's how the units work. So they automatically produce ozone by...
Yeah, we take normal air in and we select the O2 component of the air, pass it over a corona discharge, split two O2s into O1s and join them to the neighboring O2, creating an O3 molecule. Okay. Might add an unstable O3 molecule, and that's why it's prolifically oxidizing to get back to being an O2.
So you can't store ozone. You couldn't buy a bottle of ozone, for example?
No, you can't bottle it. You can infuse it into olive oil, and you can buy some lifespan. Incidentally, that diffusing into olive oil and applying to areas of eczema, psoriasis, etc., has shown great medical positives.
Okay. And the same with water. So if it's got a half-life, so if you were going to use it for a disinfectant in place of a bleach, for example, for cleaning your worktops down or food processing areas where you don't want that being tainted, you would perhaps then ozonate the water, if that's what is called. It sounds like a proper word. Ozonate the water, and then from that, then use that straight away. You wouldn't actually be able to store it and then use it tomorrow or the day after.
Absolutely. With the best will in the world, after 5 hours, it's got absolutely no value to you. So it would be a case of ozonate at point of use and use straight away.
Okay. All right. But again, going back to...
By the same token, because it's water-based and because ozone basically is a molecular addition or subtraction, when it's done its job, there is no residue. You'll find that high-powered disinfectants will leave very often a sticky residue. Or you wipe it clean with a cloth that isn't sanitized and reapply all the bacteria you've just removed.
Yeah, okay, I get that. All right, well, listen, it's been really interesting. Thanks very much for spending the time for us to have that chat, and let's hope that it'll inform a few more people about the benefits, because I think we definitely need to get the word out there and get more and more people actually utilising that and seeing if it can't just be one of those, as I said, added layers of protection in this fight against this bloody pandemic and get us all back to something. The thing is, if people want any more information, they can contact you through EnviroSafe if they've got any questions.
Absolutely, the technical help desk is here specifically for that, for our representatives and our end users.
Okay, brilliant. All right, well, nice talking to you again, Bob. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.
Cheers,
Lloyd. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So if you made it all the way to the end, thank you very much for listening. And for more information on how ozone can be used in your business, go to envirosafe.co.uk or call 01925 321 888. Alternatively, drop an email to info@envirosafe.co.uk.